Yo, welcome back, friends. How the hell's it going? Happy In Madness Monday, if that's when you're listening. I'm Shawn the Butcher. I'm here with Vertebrae33 for episode 30, part 2, the thrilling conclusion of one of my favorite movies and genres and films and whatever you can call it, Godzilla Minus One. What's up, Vertebrae?
Shawn, what's going on? This is, I said it before, so I'm going to double down and say this is my favorite Godzilla film of all time. I put it up there with 54.
And you hate ranking things.
I hate ranking, and I'm not going to rank them all because there's 38 and I haven't seen them. Although I still feel like we should watch one of them together.
I would love to sit and watch Godzilla vs. Megalon with you. I think it would be such a trip.
One you've never seen, I think would be fantastic. And
okay,
I forgot to mention this, or one you've seen, it doesn't matter, but you've heard me rail against AI previously on this podcast, right?
Get
so
away, the dog. Hold on. The dog's off the leash.
So Shawn's away, and I'm monitoring our social media and trying to keep up, and he does a fantastic job on keeping up, and I'm struggling to get photos and make sure I got something up there and whatever.
Great. I love the crow posts. Looked awesome with the comic and the photo. You did awesome.
And so out of nowhere, because I must have been looking stuff up, I get a message and it says, "My name is Meta AI. Think of me like an assistant who's here to help you learn, plan, and connect. What can I help you with today?" And then it says Godzilla Minus One poster, and then it proceeds to drop 3 AI images of Godzilla Minus One. And then I write, "Go away." And it writes back, "I'll be here if you need me. Have a great day." And then I write, "Do not come back," thinking it wouldn't reply, and it does. It says, "I'll respect your wishes, not return. Please know that I'll still be available if you need me in the future, but I will not initiate contact. Have a great day." And then in parentheses, "and a great future," which I take as a snarky little comment because they know they're going to rule the future. And he's like, "Yeah, have a great future, human." And then I'm like, I can't believe this. Shawn's away, and I'm getting into an argument with AI on our social media. So that's why I'm not in control of any of the social media. But I was like, that's the first time that's happened. And people have probably noticed that their rules of stuff have been updated on Instagram and other places. And you've gotten certain alerts. We didn't initiate anything. I just was looking stuff up, and that came up. But so last time I get to be in charge of social media because I'm in an argument with AI. So
you did great. I love all the stuff you posted, but yes, you can just text me that Godzilla Minus One vinyl you got, and I could post it on all of the socials and everything. But you did an awesome job. I was loving seeing everything posted, and we were on different time schedules because I was in London, so I was 6 hours either ahead or behind. And so I would wake up and I'd see you just posted something, and I'm like, I got something to post too. So we kind of doubled up on the crow post, which was great. Make sure you check out our crow episode or any of our previous episodes. We've been doing this show for a year, so if you're new here, feel free to take a deep dive all the way back. We are also on the socials where you can keep up to date with everything we're doing at InMadnessPod, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Threads. If you want to email us, inmadnesspod@gmail.com. We read your emails on the show, talk about anything you want, either one of our movie episodes or the in-between 0.5s, as we have grown to call them. We are also on YouTube. We went through so much to make it look cooler than it did, and I feel like it looks 1,000% better. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube where you can watch this podcast as well, and you can see all the cool toys and vinyl and posters that Vertebrae has in the background, and all my cool Godzilla posters as well. This is an interactive show. Check out the Spotify playlist where we post. I mean, we now have Gojira on there and whatever songs from this Godzilla Minus One soundtrack that I could find. Follow the In Madness Spotify playlist, which highlights songs from pretty much all the movies we have covered for the past year plus. Make sure you tell everybody about the madness. Spread the tentacles throughout the world. Vertebrae was telling me we had listeners in India and France and Yugoslavia, and I want to have everybody listening to the show. Thank you very much if you are new. Thank you very much if you are a veteran here. If you would like to rock for the In Madness Army and get yourself a shirt, we have brand new shirts, inmadness.com, a choice of 4 different shirts. I have been posting on our socials, all of our buddies rocking the shirts. We had Chef Brian from our menu episode rocking the milking of the alpaca shirt. My man Charlie was rocking the In Madness tentacle shirt. All available at inmadness.com.
And Shawn, so I think we're probably going to get a lot of new listeners on this because Godzilla Minus One is so hot right now. So I just wanted you, if you could, to explain to the new listeners the milking of the alpacas moment, because we had so many of them in the first episode.
Will you have more in this episode, Vertebrae?
No, I think that's it. I mean, I could, but I kind of, when I was taking my notes, I was like, it's ridiculous because it becomes like every other scene in
So
this movie.
milking of the alpacas we got from episode, I believe 5 it was, if you go all the way back in our catalog, to Color Out of Space, a movie which I had seen but didn't really pay attention to and didn't know I had seen. And Vertebrae was like, we have to do this movie. And then I watched and I was like, oh yeah, I'd seen it before, but I wasn't paying as deep attention. And taking a deep dive into that movie made it one of my favorite movies ever. There is a moment where everything changes, the dynamic shifts. It kind of happens in every movie. And in Color Out of Space, it happens when Nicolas Cage says, with a flaming meteor in the family's yard, this is okay, but we need to stop and go milk the alpacas. And that's
Mm.
kind of where everything gets crazy. And Vertebrae brought up the idea that we should have a milking of the alpacas moment in every single show. And there's nothing I love more than a good running bit. So it became the premiere bit of this premiere podcast, so much to the fact that it is now available in shirt sizes for you at inmadness.com.
Awesome. And a couple of things, we're going to dive back in quickly to Godzilla Minus One. And we talked about the visual effects in this movie, Shawn, and how amazing they are. And it won won the Academy Award for it. There are 35 people worked on this visual effects. That's it. 35 people, 610 shots over an 8-month period of time. Not a long period of time, not a lot of people, $15 million budget, just amazing for filmmaking on so many levels. And it shows you when somebody, he wrote it and he directed it and he supervised the special effects, so you've got Takahashi Yamazaki who's doing all of this, and he's got a pure vision of what he wants this Godzilla film to be, and it hits home. And one of those rare moments where just about everybody who sees this movie likes it. I looked all over online to see if anybody was bothered by it. Shawn is a hardcore Godzilla fan. I am, somebody who knows the films, but I don't get into the lore or, pay attention to the periods of time that it's in. But and he's got a sticker on his water bottle if you're watching on YouTube. And I've got a Godzilla mug right here that I bought at New York Comic Con that I've used a few times now. But I tried to get a -1 mug for this and I couldn't find one, not a legit one. There was a metal one that there was a lot of Japanese products that you could get at their premiere, and they're available on eBay. But it's like an $80 mug because it's going to be shipped from Japan. There was a really cool hoodie that they had as well. So some of this stuff, there's a making of book I mentioned before that's only in Japanese. So hopefully Toho does the right thing and drops that book as well, like a nice big fat hardcover book of the making of this film in English would be amazing. And I'm excited to dive back in. We ready to go?
Just to recap quickly, catching you up on what happened, our kamikaze pilot Shikishima has bailed from his kamikaze mission, landed on Odo Island. A large creature the locals call Godzilla invades the island, and all the crew on the island die because Shikishima was too frozen in fear to shoot Godzilla with his plane. The man running the crew survives and now has a lifelong vendetta against Shikishima, who has also returned home to find his whole family dead from the dropping of the bomb. During the frenzy, he takes in a young girl, Noriko, who's caring for a baby that is not hers. They live together and care for the baby. Shikishima got himself a job on a boat blowing up old leftover mines in the water. Godzilla's strength continues to grow due to continued nuclear bomb testing in the middle of the ocean. He is now attacking large ships, and the government has sent Shikishima and his boat buddies to distract the beast with their mines till real help arrives. But nothing seems to be able to stop Godzilla. He vanishes for a while, but now air raid sirens are going off that he is once again approaching and heading right towards Noriko as she's going to her new job. She's riding the train, and a goddamn bull train car gets tossed onto the tracks like a child's toy. The train comes to a screeching halt. We hear the pounding footsteps. Noriko turns around, looks out the window, And this is where we last left you on our previous episode of In Madness Pod, which I think brings us to another milking of the alpacas moment. One of the most iconic in Godzilla history. Like I said in part one, this movie has many, and this is one of my favorite scenes of all time. She looks out the window and the iconic Godzilla theme kicks in. Come on, Vertebrae, do it with me. Bwah, 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 bwah. And out steps this big, beautiful bastard Godzilla, crunching through the middle of the busy streets, total pandemonium, people running in every direction, mayhem. In the reflection of the train window, we see him approaching Noriko. And she says, "Is that Godzilla?" Cut to him, and this dude screams like, "Here I am." We see his foot take an enormous step. The ground comes up right out of the pavement, and there's bodies all over the place. His big ass slowly approaches the train and chomp like a dog with a toy. Dude lifts the entire train off the tracks. We see inside the train car, everyone slides forward. The train car breaks in half, plummets to the ground. Noriko is holding on for dear life, screaming. Godzilla's walking with the train in his mouth, and in the same shot, hanging out of the train is Noriko. Godzilla holds the train over water, and she drops safely into it.
And this is funny. We get a few, I know it's funny to bring us to reality, a few far-fetched moments. Like Noriko's the only one on this train. There's no one else hanging next to her. They didn't add just one other person. I imagine it probably makes it a little cleaner too on the visual effects if you only have one human to put in this spot. But I love when he picks up that train car, the way the floor shreds apart. It's like dry. It looks like dry. It's wood, but it looks like dry pasta or something. It just kind of shreds apart. Maybe Godzilla's hungry. Maybe, Shawn, we wondered what he ate.
Train.
Maybe he eats trains. Maybe he eats them in like all these movies, right?
He does
Maybe
in every movie.
That's his diet. Trains, planes. He likes planes, trains, and automobiles. He loves the movie as well.
God damn it. You figured it out. We cut to the next scene, literally taken directly out of Godzilla 1954. We have the news team broadcasting live as the mayhem is going down. However, in 1954, they're in a tower, but on this, they're on top of a building. They're saying the scene is beyond belief. We can only watch as this massive creature destroys our city, crushing Giza with every step it takes. We see these pesky bastard Godzilla sort of headbutt and make a mess of what now once was the Nippon Theater, a beloved icon of the people, destroyed in a matter of seconds. And it's like Godzilla's in a pool because he's just on the building and he's splashing and flailing his arms all over the place, knocking the building everywhere. He whips around and his tail whizzes past the newscaster's head and completely levels the building directly next to them. The reporter says the district that survived the air raids during the war has now been reduced to rubble and the monster is approaching us. He says this could be the end, and clumsily Godzilla just knees the building they're on top of, knocking out the bottom piece, throwing the whole building off balance, and the newscaster and his men slide off the building as it breaks in half, and the camera is pointing at their face and is falling with them, and it cuts right before they hit the floor.
Yeah, and you know what's really cool about this too, Shawn, is the way he's kind of headbutting and sweeping his arms across buildings and just happening to knee stuff. We do get, obviously, in all these films, we get him just destroying things. And in the beginning of this film, we had him throwing people. He was particularly targeting people. This almost feels like he's just getting used to being that big in this space. He's not been on land. He's not been in Tokyo before. Kind of doesn't know what to do. And, in my notes, I put, it's like he's headbutting and sweeping his arms across buildings. And then I wrote crazy news reporters on the roof, because those guys are super dedicated to their jobs, but they had to know what they were in for. Headed up to the roof. What a bad idea. What a bad ending for those fellas. And I assume nobody even, well, I mean, I guess if you were hearing it live, you heard it live, and then that was it.
Yeah, 1954. That's exactly that scene, exactly the same dudes. They're all up there. They're like, "This is the greatest sight. We're about to die, and we're here reporting it to you." Yeah, it's like it's insane. Noriko now in the streets, total mayhem everywhere. She's walking slowly in shock. Godzilla's big ass is right behind her, stomping away, crushing groups of people with every single step. Noriko freezes in panic and gets pushed to the floor. She's watching as Godzilla approaches, ready to die, when to her rescue comes Shikishima.
And this in a movie full of like insane things throughout the entire film from the beginning, 4 minutes in, we get the most far-fetched scene in the entire movie.
I knew you were gonna hate this.
This is I didn't hate it. This is the only scene in the entire movie where I was like, because like, how did he find her? There's no way
And
that
he got there
found her.
really fast.
Right. Like I think I would have rather her been in peril in a different way, and then he kind of shows up, or I don't know, she's trapped and it's reported on and he can find her, or it just takes him a little longer. He gets there really fast. Presumably everybody's going in the opposite direction, and he's able to somehow, like everybody's leaving the concert and he's got to go back because he left something there in the arena or something. Like, you're not getting through that traffic. There's no way. But it didn't bother me. I don't hate it because it's just a cool way that they filmed this movie and they did it and put things together that it kind of like, of course he found her in that way. It just sort of made sense. Anything else would have been too drawn out and taken away from that. But I was like, wait, what? That was quick.
He pulls her off the ground. They make a run for it as Godzilla is squishing fools like bugs. He does this side swipe move with his tail, which sends this twister of destruction down the entire block, knocking over every building it touches. But here come the tanks blasting away. Everyone stops in their tracks, thinking Godzilla might be dead, when again, out of the plume of smoke, he emerges and his face slowly appears. Everyone knows they're doomed. But wait, it gets worse.
And this leads me to one of my last, there's more, milking of the alpaca's moment in this film.
His back plates begin glowing blue. I'm going to put every milking of the alpaca's moment into this movie. His back plates begin glowing blue and extend with a snap all the way up his spine. Everyone is standing around stupefied, wondering what in the hell is about to happen. Slowly, the blue light creeps up his back until it reaches the top of his head. All the plates snap back into his body, and out shoots this wild blue beam of radiation atomic breath that wipes out everything in its path. Like, it clears buildings like water, and at the end of it causes this massive atomic explosion, which now begins ripping ass right back towards everybody, turning every building into rubble in the blink of an eye. We see this shot of Godzilla standing there, all the people on the floor surrounding him, and the explosion just heading right towards them, wiping out everything on its way. And Noriko pushes Shikishima into an alley, and kablooey, gets blown away and all the wreckage gone.
I don't know why she didn't just
Jump in herself.
Yeah, like just kind of tackle him down and then you both fall in that space. I wonder how many other people thought of that. Like, it's just a push forward of this, explosion, and then kind of a pull back, and then it's cleared because you don't see a lot of other people there wasn't other people around them in that same space, but obviously we know why. But I wish she would have just went with him at that point. But I guess, in a movie where we're trying to keep some stuff grounded in reality, she's like, I'm not quick enough, but he can survive and take care of the child. And yeah.
Shikishima comes out of the alley in total disbelief. Noriko is gone. He looks down the street and there's total destruction. Everything is wiped out, gone. He falls to his knees, turns around, looks at Godzilla standing there, large and in charge, staring at the giant mushroom cloud of smoke in the sky, which, if you kind of freeze it at a certain part, it does kind of look like a plume of Godzilla smoke or something in the sky.
Yeah, it's crazy. He's almost admiring it. It's really weird. Or he just like, kind of doesn't understand what just happened, or yeah, it's interesting.
He lets out this huge roar, let everyone know that he's the new king in town, and he stomps his big ass away as Shikishima begins screaming like a madman, and it begins raining black liquid.
Mhm.
What is this black liquid? This is very intriguing. We can get into it now, or we can hold on to it till the end.
We can get into it now. I think it's just it rained and the sky is full of all the debris. So it's just dirty because of the debris. You know, the
I,
rain's going to go through it.
I think it's radioactive material, Godzilla waste residue,
Oh. Huh.
because of what we get later on. I'll talk about it later.
Okay.
We see a bird's eye view of the destruction, total carnage, 30,000 killed or injured, 200,000 homes destroyed. They're trying to do a search and rescue, but everything in his path carries a risk of radiation, which is stalling any progress. Pieces of his flesh are scattered through the city, and police are collecting the skin tissue samples.
Mhm. And just Shawn, this isn't about 1954's Godzilla, but they do a lot of the radiation stuff in there as well, right? And if we think of when when that film is made, it's 1954. The war ends in 45. It's crazy. Within a decade of it, they're having this film where they're really talking about what happened in their world that they're still recovering from. And so it's still it this the reason I love this movie so much too is it plays off of all of that just like the original did, and has some different narratives to it as well. But it just these people have gone through like an incredible amount, and then here they are just dealing with more destruction from something else.
Back at Shikishima, he's added a new photo to his shrine of misery and death. It's Noriko's. It's the picture that Doc took of her at dinner earlier. He's surrounded by his boat crew, and his baby Sumiko, the angry but useful, helpful neighbor, is also there. And she says they can all help out to take care of the baby. Baby asks, "When can I see mommy?" And Sumiko says, "Mommy had to go away for a while for work." The baby begins crying. Shikishima totally ignores them all and is in a trance of total misery. He approaches the death shrine and sees the pictures of the dead men from Odo Island and says, "This is what I get for what I did to you. Why did I think I could dream again?" Doc approaches him and tells him he's part of a secret effort to defeat Godzilla led by civilians, and he asks Shikishima to be a part of it. Town meeting is underway. Talk about what exactly the hell it is they are going to do. Doc says all the men in the room are ex-Navy. The civilian army dudes in charge enter the room. Army captain says, "We are facing a threat. Powerful creature can level the city. We lack defense of our own. They can't risk further U.S. and Soviet tension. No one will help us. We have to confront this monster ourselves. That's why you're all here. They have acquired 4 destroyers." The men are astounded. "You mean you want us back on Navy ships?" They say there's no way to beat it. Plus, all the boats are disarmed already. And Doc comes in to calm everyone down. He says he's a Navy technical officer. He says Godzilla is immune to conventional weaponry. It can regenerate itself back to health, so his plan is to use unconventional weapons. He shows them all the example of his plan. See a large tank filled with water. It's got a little wooden Godzilla inside, surrounded by tubes. If they pump it with Freon, Godzilla sinks down to the ocean floor and he can be trapped there. They want to lure him to a trench which goes down 1,500 meters. It's the deepest point in nearby water. He wants to surround Godzilla with this Freon gas, sink his ass down to the bottom so rapidly the pressure will crush him to death. And then he stops and he stares, and the light is shining half off his face, and he's just giving this gnarly look, kind of like super over dramatic, and goes, "We kill it with the power of the ocean." I love it.
Mm. And so, Shawn, 2 things from this. One, that Toho 100% needs to sell that wood block shaped Godzilla that's in the tank. That would be a cool little thing to put on your desk or like on a bookshelf or a bookend or something like that. And also, we're getting, we've had plenty of meetings in Godzilla films where they're going to come up with plans, right? We had it in 54, and they got a lot of meetings in Shin Godzilla. That's a movie of a lot of meetings. And this is where we get our incredibly ridiculous plan. this, you got to give him all the credit in the world. But this is, if you don't get Shikshima's bravery and what he's planning on doing, their plan falls apart really, really fast. And this is also our big reveal of Doc is like this important guy in this movement. The guys on the crew didn't even know this. Right. So he knew a lot. He knew why they were going out there. He knew everything all along, and he knew about getting them together and kind of sized them all up. And we could sort of find out that this is his kind of crowning moment with this meeting.
What I love so again about this movie, about Shin Godzilla, about 1984 and about 1954 is they all need to end somehow. And I love that in each movie they end it differently. In 54 they get him one way, in 84 they get him another way, in 2016 they get him a different way, and this way they get him a different way. Every way they get him is sort of ridiculous. Except 84, I think, is the most feasible, probably, of all of the Godzilla parishes. We'll get there when we get to that movie, which is so cool that we can even talk about that. I can't wait till we get to that episode. But yes, it is. I thought it was a very clever plan. I don't, and again, like, he's a doctor. He's a science. I trust him with everything he's saying. You're gonna do it. Yeah, you're gonna sync them. You're gonna what? Yeah, you got the degrees on the wall. What do I got on the wall? No.
Yeah.
So
But
I'm
also,
he's my Morgan Freeman in Lucy.
nice. But he's also, we've seen this in the film earlier. So we saw the fish that were like their insides are kind of popped out through their mouth. So we've alluded to this, and this is a big part of his plan with this decompression. Those fish were sent up so quickly to the surface. So you have to imagine that, knowing that, or seeing that, and he didn't see it himself, but hearing reports of before he appears, you see these fish, and like this happens to these fish. So if we do this on a larger scale, right? Fish swim in the ocean. You don't think that can happen to them. They can go down as deep as they want and, up to the surface. If that can happen to them, why can't that happen to him? So it is based off of, scientific theory in that way. But I mean, I guess it is, like any plan against Godzilla, like you said, is just ridiculous. And this one has the unfair advantage of being able to reform himself very quickly, rapidly. So yeah, but this is his crowning moment. I love that character, the Doc character. I said it in the first episode too. That's one magnificent head of hair that guy has on him, and in this film, I think, Shawn, that should be your next haircut.
I could try it.
Yeah.
So the captain in this committee meeting is much like Vertebrae33 and doubts the plan and yells, "Can it withstand the pressure if it lives in the sea?" Calculations show that it will be crushed under the pressure. It is extremely unlikely he'd survive. Shikishima wants to know if this will guarantee Godzilla's death, and Doc says he knows very little about the creature. Theory has to drive our strategy. The men are all angry and want a guarantee of Godzilla's death, but Doc can't guarantee them shit. Shikishima gets upset and goes to leave, but Doc begs him to listen. He tells him the plan is to circle Godzilla, wrap him with the cable. Cable's going to have Freon gas. Once wrapped tight, release the gas, sink him down to the ocean floor, crushing him under his own weight. When you put it on paper like that, it makes sense to me. I buy it. I'm in. Shikishima says, what if it doesn't work? Much like Vertebrae. Doc says they got a plan B. Look in the courtyard. The men look outside the window at this big-ass bouncy castle thing that inflates immediately. The man who designed this balloon explains to them the concept. It was designed by life rafts used in the war, inflatable flotation devices, CO2 shot at high velocity into air sacs for buoyancy like a life preserver. Once Godzilla is at the bottom of the trench, they inflate the device, which raises him back up to the surface. If it survives a trip to the bottom, it's unlikely to survive the decompression it takes to rise to the top. But still, we can't guarantee it'll kill him. This is our only real chance.
Yeah, and what's cool is before that, when he has the screen and he's got the pointer, again, that's a t-shirt I wanted. He has the two boats, he's got the trench, there's the little Godzilla with the bubbles. I think it probably says Godzilla in Japanese on top of him. Like, that'd make a cool t-shirt. But if the plan made sense before and Shawn's on board, using inflatables where he could just poke them with his claws is the part that's the kind of like has, hate to poke holes in that theory, but dun, dun, dun. But that's the one that's a little, and then when it's executed, it gets a little wonkier as well. But he's so, engaged and you're so into it and the way he speaks that he's rallying the troops. He's getting everyone on board. If there's this smart guy in front of us telling us this will work, we got to do it. What do we
I'm
know?
believing it.
Yeah.
I'm following right behind Doc. The man in charge tells the men he understands why they wouldn't want to put their lives on the line once again. After surviving the war, he knows it's unfair, but they need their help. They're alone with no government assistance, so the future of this nation is in your hands once again. If you wish not to volunteer, you can go back to your families. You're not going to be forced to stay, and a couple of dudes bail. A man asks if the plan means certain death for the men carrying it out, and Doc says it is not. The man says those odds are better than the war. Everyone laughs and says someone has to do the job, and the rest of them stay and are down for the plan.
Mhm.
Back at Shikishima's, the men from the boat are having dinner complimenting the Doc on his crazy plan. He says he had a direct encounter with the beast, so he was asked to take the lead. He thinks Godzilla will return to Tokyo within 10 days. Doc set up radiation detectors all over. He says they can't just rely on their eyes to figure out where Godzilla is, but the captain is doubtful Godzilla will walk into the trap. Doc says they have an underwater amp with speakers used for acoustic minesweeping. They play recordings of Godzilla's voice, so it'll show up thinking it's another territorial competitor. Captain is doubtful of Doc's plan. Doc scoffs at him and says, "You think of a better one then." Kid says, "What about pulling Godzilla up using the destroyers?" And Doc's like, "He's far too heavy." Kid sits down defeated. Cap says Doc's plan's got a lot of holes in it. Doc tells him to stop complaining. Shikishima asks Doc if he can get him a fighter plane. If Godzilla comes ashore, Shikishima can use the guns and lead it towards the boats. They tell him with Godzilla's heat ray, he'd be risking his life. He says he doesn't care about the risks. A good fighter plane will outrun and outmaneuver any boat. Cap asks him if he's helping to help or if he's trying to die. Shikishima tells him he's drunk. Captain says he just wants to avenge Noriko. Shikishima says, "What's wrong with that?" Captain says he waited too long. He grabs Shikishima and angrily asks him why he didn't marry her when he had the chance. Shikishima says he wanted to. Captain asks, "Why didn't you?" Shikishima says his war is not over yet. Shikishima drives his bike to a garage to meet Doc. He found him a fighter plane, but it's a bit unique. It's some new plane built at the end of the war to utilize fast hit and run tactics. It's fast as hell and got some badass guns, but it's in bad shape. They need a top mechanic to fix it or someone who really knows their way around a fighter. Shikishima gets an idea. He knows just the person. Tachibana, the dude whose crew he got killed in the beginning of the movie. He doesn't have an exact address, but a few different ones. So Shikishima writes a dozen letters with each address, sends them all out, and Doc tells him Tachibana is a hard man to track down. He wants to find somebody else to fix the plane, but Shikishima begs him to wait.
And that plane is a real plane. The Shinden was an interceptor they built. There was only 2 prototypes finished. So that's what they look like. So that's really cool. It's not just a fake sort of movie thing that they made up. This plane existed. It was supposed to be, a maneuverable interceptor, and there was a jet engine powered version that they were trying to kind of working on, and they never got it. So I think after the war, I think one of them, they were just kind of, they have to decommission this stuff. So I think it was kind of decommissioned. You can look it up online. There's more about this plane. I just thought it was neat that it wasn't something that they just made up for movie magic, like it existed.
Shikishima's walking home. A man comes limping up behind him and strikes him with a stick. Shikishima gets doused with a bucket of water, opens his eyes, and there he is, Tachibana. Shikishima is stoked to see him. Tachibana rips all the letters out of his pocket and throws them. He's like, "What the hell are these about?" He punches Shikishima right in the face. Tachibana reads the letters saying the Odo Island massacre was his own fault. It's his fault his men died. He wants to kill Shikishima, who apologizes and said he wrote those to Tachibana so he would come looking for him. Tachibana says, "How dare you?" and punches him in the face again. Shikishima tells him the same monster that attacked Odo Island is the same one that's about to destroy Tokyo, Godzilla. He tells him they have a fighter. They're going to try and kill it. He needs his help to fix it. He needs a good mechanic. He begs for forgiveness, but he says, "You're on your own. I'll never help you." Shikishima tells him how he detonated a mine in Godzilla's mouth and hurt it. He thinks they could kill it if they hit it from the inside. He wants to rig the fighter with explosives and fly it right into Godzilla's mouth and kill it once and for all. Another kamikaze mission. Shikishima says the war isn't over yet, not for us. The next day, Shikishima is telling Doc he fell down drunk and injured himself, not that Tachibana beat his ass. And in walks Tachibana with a crew, ready to work on the fighter. Shikishima is stoked. Tachibana says he'll do everything he can to fix it. The men are loading up the ships with all the equipment needed to execute the plan. Cap asks Doc why he looks so glum. Doc says for everything to work, they will need a goddamn miracle. Cap says for a miracle, you can't stand around and wait. They look around at all the men helping out with the plan, putting their lives at risk, but yet everyone looks happy to participate because this time they have a chance to make a real difference. In the war, they suffered every day, but now they can do good again.
Here they go. So we've got another part of the plan. We've got the plan that Doc rolled out, and then we've got this addition to this plan. And he really wants to be, Shikishima really wants to be vindicated for, and he's lost Noriko. He has a Kiko to be around for. But he's willing to just for her future, to do what he has to do.
We cut to nighttime. A radiation buoy begins crackling in the middle of the water. The men are tracking Godzilla's position. They estimate and plan at what time he'll be arriving and when to carry out their attack plan. The men with the flotation devices assure that they will be on the boat and ready. Doc tells them they'd be risking their lives, and he says they've all been to war. Doc tells the men to go spend time with their families, and they ask if it's to prepare them. And Doc says no. For far too long, this country treated our lives far too cheaply. Tanks with bad armor, poor supply chains, leading to starvation and disease, which caused the most casualties during the war, fighter planes with no ejector seats, which should be the bare minimum, and kamikaze suicide attacks, which seems to get Shikishima's undivided attention. Doc says he wants this citizen-led effort to sacrifice no lives at all. The next battle isn't a fight to the death, it's a fight to live for the future. All the men agree, they leave. The kid is excited to finally be going, and the captain tells him he's not going. Doc tells him they have no use for him because his arm's messed up. Kid insists he could be of help. He's not useless. Cap tells him not being part of war is something to be grateful for. They walk off, and the kid tells him he wants to defend his country. He's pissed he's not allowed to join them in the fight. He says, I thought we were a team. They were all in this together. He's screaming behind the Doc and the Cap as they walk away, and Cap says, we're leaving this country's future with you.
And this amazing scene, Shawn, we got this map laid out, and he's going over the map, and well enough how my brain operates. So there's a part in the scene where he's got two triangles, and he sort of like uses one to extend the length of the other. But then if you look at the map, I think one triangle would have just drawn the line from point one. Like I don't get and I looked it up. I was like, I wonder what those are called. It's kind of a cool way if you're sliding them up and down to make the line, but the map wasn't that big. So I think he could have done it. But, so we get this touching scene about how they have to dedicate to the country. And then my, warped mind gets lost on this, maneuverability on a map. But I think it was very cool. Put that map on a shirt too. Let's get that to be a shirt as well. And we're headed into the final act of this film.
We cut to Tachibana's men fixing up the fighter. He takes a long, hard look at the seat. We cut to Shikishima thanking Sumiko for all she's done with the baby. The baby hands him a picture she drew of the family. The baby begins crying. He picks her up and tells her he'll always be there for her. Cut to her asleep in bed, and Shikishima's leaving a package near her. He puts on his jacket and sneaks out and heads to his plane. He meets with Tachibana, who shows him all the work he's done, equipped with bombs, guns, everything he'll need. Shikishima says now he has the chance to make things right. He looks at his hands slightly shaking. He laughs and says part of him wants to live. Tachibana tells him no one in his Odo Island crew wanted to die, but they didn't get a chance to go home because Godzilla killed them. Shikishima says he knows what he has to do. He takes the package Tachibana gave him in the beginning with the pictures of the dead men on it out of his jacket. Tachibana sees that he still has it. He also opens up the picture the baby gave him. He says he wants there to be a future for her. Godzilla has to be stopped. He'll do whatever it takes. Tachibana says he's finally ready. He says this part is important. Listen up. He shows him the bomb lever. Pull it right before you fly into the monster's mouth. And there's one more thing.
Mm-hmm. And Shawn, hold on before you go there. What not a great dad moment though, to leave and just leave the baby there. Like I think he could have dropped her off with Sumiko. She would have had no idea. Like I don't think she knows about the plan, right? He's just going somewhere. So I think he could have just dropped her off and maybe hid that packet in her house or just said, hey, if anything happens to me, here's this stuff, right? Like he makes it a little more dramatic by leaving the note. I think she would have taken care of her anyway. But I didn't have to leave. Like she could have wandered anywhere, like a completely different film. If she wandered off and Godzilla showed up and stomped her or something, like just drop her off at the babysitters. That was a weird, he's struggling to be a dad and try to be a hero and try to make good with the family, but that's a weird one.
Cut to Samiko, who comes out and sees the baby holding the package. She takes it. It's filled with money in a letter, and it says, "Look after the baby. Here's money for her." Cut to the men out in the middle of the water watching for Godzilla. The radiation buoys in the water begin flickering. The dead bulbous fish begin popping up. We see other ships dragging a speaker through the water, blasting Godzilla's roar to lure him to them. An air raid siren goes off, and the men at the dock prepping the materials to kill Godzilla begin to roll out to catch him. Doc and the captain are saying it looks like the kid finally gave up. They feel bad for excluding him, but it's for his own good. Doc also isn't stoked about Shikishima flying. He might try something reckless. Cap says he's got the baby. He can't just leave her alone. And kaboom. Everyone hears a loud noise. They all look over, and a goddamn whole entire ship on fire comes flying through the air right at them and crashes into a building. Cap points off in the distance, and here comes Godzilla right towards them. Cut to Shikishima getting ready to lift off. He puts the picture of Noriko that Doc took earlier in his flight gear. He's zipping through the air, testing out the plane. Everything seems good on the ground. Tachibana says, "Put an end to this war, Shikishima." Godzilla's stomping his big ass through the boatyard, and all the men are like, "We're screwed. We're screwed. It's too late." Doc says they must still head out to the trench. There's nowhere else to carry out their plan. We have to rely on Shikishima to lure him to us. They board their ships and they head out. Shikishima radios the Doc's ship and tells him he's on his way. Cap snatches the radio from Doc and tells him he better not be trying anything stupid. Cap won't let him abandon the baby. Shikishima goes to respond but says nothing, and his Cap is screaming at him on the other end. Back at his place, Sumiko gets a telegram and she reads it in total shock. Cut to Godzilla just demolishing everything in his path. He walks right through a house, his big ass feet crushing the house. Debris is landing on the people who are running away from the house, which he also then steps on. Shikishima circles around him, gets his attention, and begins firing. Godzilla follows him back out of the water, and they begin to execute their plan.
He's so annoyed by this one plane. And it's funny when those people are running the house and he stops the house, there's a dog that barks and runs away. And I was like, oh no, but like the dog gets away. So we were okay. But I thought we were going to have one of those moments that we end up having on this podcast a lot with the animals. But yeah, he's
the fish
annoyed. Yeah. Or fixated, like almost like a child in a lot of ways, Godzilla, and just fixated on this plane. Like he could just keep moving or whatever, but he's falling for their bait and where he needs to go. But he looks so cool in this scene, and it's broad daylight, and just this is wild.
Yeah, there's no nighttime scenes in this movie.
Godzilla. Just the beginning.
Yeah. Shikishima leads Godzilla right to them, but his back begins glowing blue, and the Doc sees it and says, "That's it." And we see the inside of the boat is being steered by no one. It's a decoy. Godzilla blows it straight to hell. The men who have never witnessed it freak out, and they want to bail immediately. We get this sick shot of Godzilla standing there smoldering. I love that every time he uses heat ray, like his body is also burning after. Doc convinces the men not to bail. They're concerned about the heat ray. Doc says it takes a while to recharge, and they put their plan into effect. Two boats surround them. They dump the flotation devices in the water, begin circling him as Shikishima is flying overhead, keeping Godzilla distracted. He's shooting at him. The boats circle and pass each other. They even collide a little bit, but they make it past each other in a circle. Doc says, "Prepare the switch," as Godzilla gets tangled in the web. His back begins to charge bright blue, but right as he's about to fire, they trigger the Freon, which shoots his ass right down to the bottom of the ocean. We see his back glowing, but then immediately it goes out like someone flicked off a light switch. The men stand
This is
around.
the part, Shawn, that I think is the best chance of success that they have with this plan. I don't get the bringing him back up. especially in this case because you'll describe it, but it just takes forever. So I feel like he could adjust. This was their best hope, I think, is just suddenly, I don't know, maybe they should have had some bombs too. But again, we are, post World War II Japan. They don't have a lot of equipment. They're sort of being allowed to use these ships, and maybe they just don't have it at their disposal. But I can't help but think if they could have decompressed him very quickly and then let off a few bombs on his body, maybe that would have,
Give him some
helped a
dino
little bit.
damage.
Yeah.
The men stand around bewildered. Did we kill it? And then the boat cables attached to Godzilla begin to tighten. As the boats begin flailing around, he's still alive. They need to try plan B. They trigger the inflatable devices, which sends Godzilla skyrocketing back to the top. He's coming up top speed.
He looks like he looks like he's covered in Pez candy when he comes up, like this little Pez. And then I was thinking, because I get distracted easily sometimes, I was like, I don't have a Godzilla. Do you own a Godzilla Pez, Sean?
Nope, I do not.
That's pretty cool, right? If it was a Godzilla Pez, but maybe it was the blue candy that was in there, that'd be kind of
That
neat.
would be super cool. We see his skin begin cracking, but all the cables stop rising and he ceases to come up. Doc wonders what the hell's going on. All the flotation devices pop out of the water like the yellow barrels in Jaws, and Cap says Godzilla bit through them. They have to pull up Godzilla using the ship's cables. Someone came up with that idea earlier. The men say he's too big, but they don't have enough power, but they try. And we see the ships leaning backwards, trying to haul up his weight until the cranes break off completely. Now they are screwed. Until a boat siren sounds its horn in the distance. We see another ship approaching over the loudspeaker saying, looks like you could use some help. Stunned, the Cap says he knows that voice, runs to the radio, and it's the kid, not a dry eye in the house.
And also, this is the first time in these two episodes that I get to mention Star Wars. But this is a very Rise of Skywalker moment where at the end of that film, all the ships show up to help. And we get that moment here too with the kid leading the way.
All the men run out to see dozens of ships pulling up to them, all led by the boat the kid is on. He said, how's this for useless? We're here to save your ass. The captain is elated. The kid decided not to listen to them. They all work together to pull up Godzilla. The plan is working. He rises out of the water and he's pissed. Doc can't believe it. Godzilla's back begins to glow again. Shit's about to hit the fan. We see his skin cracked. It's broken. It almost looks like he's frozen. And his eyes are glazed over bright white. It looks like he's like a glacier. It's sick.
This is the cool, like this would be a great figure. This Godzilla right here in this state. It's got a little touch of Arctic horror, Sean, that I love so much. He looks like he's frozen over in a way. And we're going to get a moment here where, and this is an incredible score, and they do this a lot throughout the film, where they'll just drop out all the sound. And this coming moment, all the sound just drops out for a few seconds, and it's amazing.
He's about ready to unleash, and in slow motion, the music stops. We see all the men on the boat slowly rise. They accept their fate. This is it, about to be evaporated. It's a long edge of your seat moment until here comes Shikishima flying his ass right towards Godzilla. Doc and Cap are like, what is he doing? They scream for him not to do it. They scream out his name. We see him flying right up to Godzilla's mouth. He arms the bomb, takes one last look at Noriko's picture, pulls a lever, and the plane flies right into Godzilla's big fat mouth. Godzilla stands there frozen, partially stupefied, like, what the hell is kablooey? The bomb explodes inside of his mouth. His arms fall to the sides. A large plume of smoke surrounds his head, and Cap whispers, Shikishima. Doc says, look up there. A parachute opens in the distance, and there he is, pilot ejected. He is alive. Not a dry eye in the house.
Amazing.
Tachibana is listening on the radio and lets out a sigh of relief. We flash back to him telling Shikishima about one more thing. On the plane, he says, I added this too. It's an ejection seat. pull that lever to activate it. Shikishima looks at him in shock as this dude who's supposed to be, his mortal enemy, everything leading up to this was supposed to be his kamikaze mission, avenging the death of all the dudes who were lost. And this guy who wants him to die for the loss of his crew instead, Tachibana grabs Shikishima by the shoulder and says, live. Everyone breaks wide open, not a dry eye in the house. Everyone gutted. Most emotional moment in a Godzilla movie or maybe any movie ever. Shikishima is floating down in his parachute above Godzilla. The smoke clears. He emerges with his head blown right the hell off. Whole top of his jaw missing, blown to smithereens. Blue bright lights begin to shine out of his body and he crumbles like a statue. The men on the boat stop and salute. Godzilla is dead.
Crazy. And what a crazy way that he falls apart in solid pieces. So he felt like it was frozen and it's just almost like chunks of ice that kind of come down. And then I'm going to take this next moment, Shawn, because this next moment got to me. So Godzilla falls and crumbles, and they all begin to salute. Are they saluting Godzilla? Are they saluting Shikishima, who's already presumably, by the way, let's just forget about him for a second. The poor guy's already probably floated down to the water and like nobody's picked him up yet because they're all standing there saluting. But I almost felt like they were saluting Godzilla in a lot of ways.
Me too.
And that adds a whole other piece to it, that's your enemy and you're showing respect to him as a being, right? A being who didn't ask to be in this position, who nuclear bombs enlarged and took him, maybe if we think he's a dinosaur that's been around, and in this incarnation, he exists for a while, and I know they do it differently, a little bit differently in some of the films, but in this one, he's small, right? I think all of them, it's the nuclear bombs, but correct me if I'm wrong, this one makes it seem like he wasn't unearthed from blasts. He existed, was living his life, and didn't ask for this. And there's there's a lot of touching moments in it, but that one is like, wow, that these guys can put that aside and be like, okay, you fought a good battle, but it's over.
It is a moment. The men return to the docks. Everyone's cheering. Shikishima walks off the boat. The kid runs up to him crying, saying, you did it. Cap tells the kid he did a great job. Again, not a dry eye in the goddamn house. Shikishima's shocked to see Sumiko there. She hands him the telegram. He's in shock. Got to him holding the baby, runs up the steps of the hospital. The music crescendos. He opens the door, and there she is, Noriko, alive, bandaged up. Again, not a dry eye in the house. She says, can this war of yours finally be over? Crying, he shakes his head, yes. He puts his head in her lap. She leans forward and... what the fuck is that? You see that thing right there on her neck? That black thing that looks like a vein? Is that Godzilla blood? Is that Godzilla juice? Is that radiation juice? What? Cut to black. We're in the water. Godzilla's dead globule of a body sinking and bleeding to the ocean floor. And like dumping water on a gremlin, the globule begins to bubble, and once again the iconic music kicks in. Wah, 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 wah. Cut to black. The end. However, something I didn't catch because I didn't sit around for the credits in the movie, but in Netflix I did. At the very end, you once again hear slowly stomping, approaching, getting much closer. And the screen turns black, and you hear Godzilla scream, letting you know this dude is very much alive. Godzilla Minus One, greatest fucking movie ever.
Wow. And so if you've listened to this podcast before, I'll be like, but wait, there's more. This movie is the antithesis of that. But wait, there's more. Hey guys, he's going to sacrifice himself. No, wait, he didn't. They actually put the ejection seat in. He comes out. He's alive. Well, at least he's alive for Akiko. But wait, here she is. Don't worry about it. And we hug. We're back together. Wait, there's some black stuff crawling up under her skin. She's got a Godzilla hickey on her neck. And we're, and then cut to black. And he's not actually dead. And the credits. Nope. In case you were wondering, he's fully alive and stomping around and roaring, and that happened quickly. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but confirmed by the director Yamazaki is that detail was G cells, which have been in other Godzilla films and used to create other villains, like what is the guy's name? Biollante, and also Space Godzilla.
Amazing.
So there's been tons of theories about this. Is this how she was able to survive? Where did that cell come from? Was she everyone in the past? Were they infected? Is it radiation?
Are they X-Men now?
Yeah. What's going to happen? I don't know.
Does she have claws?
Will he have to deal with her if they made a sequel deforming while dealing with the return of Godzilla? That'd be pretty gnarly and pretty sad at the same time. Are there more people like that? Is she the only one who was infected? Did it have something to do with when the rain came down and washed that stuff down? We were not allowed in this movie to have a happy moment. Every time we got the good moments, it was followed by a crushing moment. And yes, for that moment, they salute him. They've moved on. He's back with her. But everything's not okay. It's far from okay. And yeah, this movie, I say it so much. I use the word amazing a lot. I got to find other words. I got to get a thesaurus and come up with
stupendous.
Yes, this is. Oh, I like that.
Spectacular.
Marvelous. That's kind of an old sounding word, marvelous. But it's just incredible. And this is a movie that I am going to have to watch at least once a year. And if they put out other material to go along with it, books and things, I'm going to have to read those books. There is a novelization of this, Shawn. It's only in Japanese. I did find audio of it online on YouTube, but it's like the computer reading it, like somebody ran it through something. And so it sounds really weird and it's just not enjoyable to listen to. But I would love them to put out the novelization of this and to kind of explain some of the other stuff as we go along. But what a complete film. What a ride. My favorite Godzilla movie of all time. And it was an honor to go through this with you and sit here and be like, I can't believe it. We just had this movie. It's funny too, is I said 2024, but I think it's I think it came out in 23 in Japan and then 24 here or something like that. I think that's what it was. Because Netflix listed as 23, but
I love that it sort of ends like Shin Godzilla at the end. There's a very like, what the hell was that moment? I won't get into the Shin Godzilla ending, but it ends kind of exactly like this. We'll get there eventually, but I love how they both end on this note that's like a completely different direction than the entire rest of the movie. Like this little hidden factor that wasn't explained during the movie that was probably happening all throughout the movie, but they don't key you into it until the very last second before everything ends, which sends my mind spinning down a whole rabbit hole, which was like, yeah, was it the rain? Were some people like infected by the Godzilla radiation rain, and are they going to become like Godzilla people or like mutants, or like, yeah, is it like a Godzilla army now? Is that what, like, he's gone but now he's left the world, like everyone is now going to deform into like a lizard and start like, yeah, I don't know, but that's where
or even not even deform, but just get some of these immortal abilities, like be able to reform. Like that's an interesting way to go too. So they're not going to necessarily become like evil monsters themselves, but the fact that they're infected makes them, be able to heal fast. And she's obviously there, and you could imagine a world or a sequel to this where you then have to deal, like, how unfair is that? That part of the people are able to be healed while the rest of the society still suffers. Like, that could be interesting unto itself as they're dealing with post World War II Japan. Now you have these people that maybe can't die amongst other people who can, right? That's an interesting way to go with it too, as well.
Vertebrae's writing -2 right now.
Does it sound as cool, -2? I mean, I'm not gonna lie. If they call it that, that's fine. I'm sure that I would think, Shawn, they are gonna make a sequel to this. I think that's
You know, I thought the same thing about Shin Godzilla, and it just and that's kind of what I like even better, kind of like Cloverfield, although I heard they're making another Cloverfield, but like an actual sequel. But like I
Mhm.
like an ending with like, oh, there's definitely gonna be a sequel to this, and then there just isn't. And it's like, well, what was it then? Then what is this? What is happening then? So
The
yeah,
problem
I
with
love
that
that.
is this is such an epic film, and made them so much money and gave them so much acclaim and won the Academy Award, that I feel like you've got to let this director play in this world again and see what he can do. I don't, I think there's a lot of ways that he could take it. I know certainly when they do sequels to these films, they just will add more monsters to it. I do like the idea if it's the monster is just these infected people type thing. That's kind of interesting. Maybe there's like a zombie sort of version of these people that are not, and they're sort of dealing with Godzilla and dealing with this at the same time. I'm writing now. That's 3.0 that I just wrote. I got the whole range. And two, Toho has done a fantastic job with marketing this film. Their merchandise is incredible. They have put out some incredible t-shirts and hoodies, and they do a lot of limited edition stuff. So if you want some of it, don't do like I did, where there was a Finback hoodie that existed and I wanted it so bad, but I hadn't seen the movie and I didn't want to be a poser. And so I didn't get it. I didn't get it, and then it sold out and I can't find it
Did you
anywhere now.
salute when it sold out? You were like, damn,
Yeah,
I
yeah. I just
gotta,
was at my
gotta
browser and I just did a slow
yeah.
salute. But um exciting to go through this movie. We want to hear what you guys thought
Yes,
about it.
even more exciting. Tell us what the hell you thought about the movie. Tell us what you thought about this episode. Tell us what you thought that black shit was creeping up the back of her neck. What was the rain? Is it Godzilla radiation poisoning? Is it debris rain? At In Madness Pod on all the socials, inmadnesspod@gmail.com. If you want to contact us about anything involving any of the episodes of this show, you could check us out on YouTube. We got a nice new spiffy layout on YouTube. I think it looks pretty sweet. Subscribe to the In Madness Spotify playlist. You can check out Vertebrae33's Godzilla Minus One beautiful shirt there. And you make sure follow us on all of the socials and spread the madness worldwide. Tell your friends, your aunt, your uncle, grandma, grandpa, whoever you got the person chained up in the basement, tell them about In Madness Pod. We want them listening. And if you want shirts, inmadness.com for your tentacle eye and milking of the alpacas t-shirts. This was an amazing episode. I'm so glad we dipped our toe into the world of Godzilla. I could not believe we were finally, this is like the first time we're going to do The Thing, or the first time we cover Alien. Like, we're just touching very sacred ground, even though this movie just came out. For me as a whole, I can't wait till we get into the other 3 movies that I absolutely love. Maybe we do a quick thing where we both watch one of the cornier ones from When He's a Good Guy. But I'm looking forward to all of the future that Godzilla will have on this show. Is there anything you wanted to plug before we wrap up this thrilling episode 30, part 2 of In Madness Pod?
I mean, I just plugged the Toho shop instead of our own, so there's that. But they don't need the money. But Vertebrae33 on all the socials. I have a store. I have shirts at Hot Topic. I have shirts soon to be in other stores as well that I'm gonna announce. And I appreciate anyone taking the time to listen. Shawn said it before. It's, if you're just tuning in, we're an interactive podcast. We want to hear from you. We want you to rate and review us if you can on the Apple, podcast thing. I think you could just leave a score on the Spotify one, because that gets more people listening and the discussion can be furthered and people can bring up their ideas and theories. I would love to see people come up with theories on this film and how it ended and do their own research. And we appreciate it. And thanks for listening.